The diner buzzed with the usual midday chatter, plates clinking and waitresses weaving through tables with practiced ease. It was just another Tuesday in a town most people had never heard of, the kind of place where nothing truly surprising ever seemed to happen. At least, that's what Emma had always believed. She wiped her hands on her apron, tucked a few stray hairs behind her ear, and grabbed a pot of coffee to make her rounds. Her sneakers squeaked slightly on the tiled floor, a sound she barely noticed anymore. Life at the diner wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and honest work was all she had. Emma didn't have dreams of fame or fortune. She was too busy paying bills, helping her younger brother with his homework, and saving every spare penny she could. Her life was a quiet one, full of small kindnesses and long days. She never expected anything more. She didn't think the world even knew she existed. But all of that started to change the moment she noticed a little boy sitting alone in the corner booth. His small hands wrapped tightly around a chipped mug of cocoa that had long since gone cold. At first, Emma thought he must be waiting for someone. Maybe his mom had just stepped outside to take a phone call. Maybe his dad was parking the car. But as minutes ticked by and no one came, her heart gave a small, painful tug. The boy couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. His clothes a little too big for his frame. His eyes wide and serious as he stared down at the table. There was something about him, something too quiet, too still, that Emma couldn't ignore. She knelt beside the booth, her voice soft. "Hey there, buddy. You okay? You waiting for someone?" The boy looked up, and Emma felt the air catch in her lungs. His eyes were a clear, piercing blue, framed by dark lashes. Eyes that looked both far too young and heartbreakingly old at the same time. He nodded shyly but didn't say a word. Emma smiled gently, trying to make him feel safe. "Do you want something to eat?" she asked. "On the house. My treat." He hesitated, then gave a small nod. Emma's heart melted. She quickly fetched him a plate of pancakes, loaded with syrup and butter, and set it in front of him. The boy's face lit up with a smile so pure it made her throat tighten. For a few minutes as he ate, the world around them faded away, the clatter of the diner, the rush of life, leaving only the simple shared moment between a struggling waitress and a lonely child. Emma didn't ask too many questions. She didn't want to scare him. She figured whoever he was waiting for would walk in any minute, apologize for the confusion, and everything would make sense. But time kept passing. Lunch shifted toward late afternoon, and still no one came. Finally, Emma sat across from him, lowering her voice. "Is there someone I can call for you? Your mom or dad?" The boy's fork paused halfway to his mouth. His shoulders tensed. He stared at the pancakes like they held the answer he was searching for. After a long silence, he whispered, "My dad's busy." Emma frowned. "Busy doing what?" The boy didn't answer. He just pushed his food around the plate, suddenly small and quiet again. Emma glanced toward the door, half expecting a frantic parent to burst through at any second. But the minutes dragged on. She made a decision then, the kind that came from instinct, from the part of her heart that still believed in doing the right thing even when it was hard. She wasn't going to leave this kid alone, no matter what. She called her boss over, explained the situation in a low voice. Her manager, Mr. Collins, grumbled about not getting involved in other people's problems, but Emma stood firm. In the end, he relented with a sigh, telling her to handle it as long as she stayed out of trouble. Emma wrapped the boy's jacket a little tighter around him and led him to a quieter corner of the diner. She found a crayon and some paper from the hostess stand and let him draw while she kept an eye on him. Every so often, he glanced at the door, a flicker of hope in his eyes that broke Emma's heart a little more each time it faded. The boy told her his name was Liam. He didn't say much else, no last name, no details about where he lived. When Emma asked gentle questions, he would only smile politely or shake his head. She didn't push. Something inside told her that trust had to be earned slowly with this one. As the sky outside started to darken, Emma realized she needed to make a call. She didn't want to bring the police into it too soon. What if Liam's dad really was just around the corner? But she also couldn't just leave it. She promised Liam she'd stay close, that everything would be okay. She just hoped she wasn't lying to him. She pulled out her battered old phone and stepped away for just a moment to call a local children's services hotline she found online. But before she could even press call, a black SUV rolled up outside the diner. The doors swung open, and two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the diner through the glass. They looked nothing like worried parents. They looked like the kind of people you didn't say no to. Emma's stomach dropped. One of the men pulled open the diner door, and the other followed close behind. Every head in the room turned. The men walked straight toward Liam's booth with a purpose that sent a ripple of tension through the air. Emma rushed back to the boy's side, her heart pounding. Liam shrank against her, his little hands gripping the sleeve of her uniform. The taller man, with sharp cheekbones and a stern expression, pulled out a badge. Not a police badge, but something she didn't recognize. He said something about escorting the child back and family affairs, but the words felt cold, rehearsed. Won't. Emma's instincts screamed at her that something wasn't right. She tightened her arm protectively around Liam, glancing around the diner, hoping someone would step in, help her say something. But everyone else seemed frozen, unsure of what they were seeing. The taller man stepped closer. "You need to let go of him, miss." Emma looked down at Liam. His eyes, so full of fear now, locked onto hers with a silent plea. "Don't let them take me." Emma took a deep breath, her hands shaking. She didn't know who these men were. She didn't know what kind of trouble she was stepping into. All she knew was that Liam was scared, and something deep inside her told her she had to fight for him. Before she could say another word, a deep, commanding voice echoed from the entrance of the diner, stopping everyone in their tracks. "Step away from my son." Emma turned toward the door, and froze at the sight of a man she recognized from newspapers, television screens, even billboards. The man standing there wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the richest men alive. And somehow he was Liam's father. For a moment, the whole diner seemed to fall into a strange kind of silence. Even the clink of cutlery and the low hum of conversation stopped, like the world was holding its breath. Emma's heart hammered in her chest as she stared at the man standing at the door. She knew who he was, everyone did. Christopher Langston, billionaire businessman, owner of half the buildings downtown. A man whose name was always tied to success, power, and more money than most people could even imagine. He was the kind of person Emma had only ever seen on TV, not someone she expected to walk into a dusty diner like theirs. But there he was, larger than life, his sharp eyes pinned on the two men in suits. His presence alone seemed to shift the air in the room. The men backed off instantly, straightening like soldiers caught doing something wrong. Emma looked down at Liam. He had gone very still beside her, but his small hand gripped hers even tighter. She squeezed back without thinking. Christopher walked forward, his expensive shoes tapping on the floor with each step. His suit was perfect, tailored, crisp. Everything about him screamed money and power. Yet his face, when he looked at Liam, softened just slightly, just enough that Emma could tell he wasn't just some cold businessman. There was real worry in his eyes, real fear. "I'll handle it from here," Christopher said, his voice low and firm. The men in suits nodded stiffly and stepped back, blending into the edges of the diner like shadows. Emma stayed where she was, her body tense. She wasn't sure if she should let go of Liam yet. She wasn't sure if she trusted anyone at this point, even a man like Christopher Langston. Christopher crouched down slowly, trying not to spook the boy. His voice dropped to a gentle murmur. "Liam, buddy. I'm sorry I took so long." Liam's lip trembled. Emma could feel the battle happening inside him, the fear, the confusion, the longing for someone he could trust. He let go of Emma's sleeve slowly, hesitating, then took a small step toward Christopher. Emma finally stood, giving them space, but her hands stayed curled into tight fists at her sides. She didn't know what to do. Her instincts screamed to protect Liam, but logic told her this was his father. This was family. Christopher stood, scooping Liam up with surprising tenderness. He whispered something in the boy's ear that Emma couldn't hear, and Liam buried his face in his father's shoulder, clutching at his suit like he never wanted to let go. Emma watched them, her mind racing. Why had Liam been left alone for so long? Why had men in suits come for him like he was some asset to be retrieved? Why did everything about this feel wrong? Christopher turned his attention to her then. His gaze softened, but there was a kind of heaviness there too, like he was carrying the weight of 1,000 things he couldn't say. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You took care of my son when I wasn't there to do it myself." Emma opened her mouth to say something. She wasn't even sure what, but Christopher beat her to it. "I owe you more than you know," he continued, shifting Liam slightly in his arms. "But I can't explain everything. Not yet." Emma frowned. "I'm not asking for anything," she said honestly. He looked so scared. Christopher gave a small, pained smile. "He has reason to be." That answer only made more questions swirl in Emma's mind, but she stayed silent. She didn't know what she was stepping into, and a lifetime of living carefully had taught her when to keep her head down. Christopher reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. No writing on it, just a phone number. He held it out to her. "If anyone comes asking questions, if you ever feel unsafe, call this number," he said. His voice was serious now, edged with something that made Emma's stomach twist with unease. She hesitated, then took the card. The weight of it felt heavier than it should have been. Before she could say another word, Christopher nodded once, a silent thank you or maybe a goodbye, and walked out of the diner, Liam still clutched tightly in his arms. The two men in suits followed, and within seconds, the black SUV roared to life and disappeared down the street. Emma stood there, frozen, staring at the door long after they were gone. Around her, life in the diner slowly started up again. The clatter of dishes, the buzz of conversation, like nothing had happened. But inside Emma, everything felt different. Like a door had been opened to a world she was never meant to see. Mr. Collins barked at her to get back to work, but Emma barely heard him. She tucked the black card into her apron pocket and tried to focus on her tables. She poured coffee, cleared plates, forced smiles, but her mind wasn't there. It was still with Liam. With the fear in his eyes. With the warning in Christopher's voice. That night, after her shift, Emma sat in her tiny apartment with the card in her hand. She turned it over and over between her fingers, thinking. She didn't know what to do. She didn't even know if she should do anything. Maybe it was better to forget. Pretend today never happened. Go back to her quiet life. But something deep down told her it wasn't going to be that easy. The next morning, things got even stranger. As Emma walked to the diner, a sleek black car rolled slowly down her street, crawling at an unnatural pace. She pretended not to notice, but her heart beat faster. When she glanced over her shoulder, she caught a glimpse of someone watching her from the passenger window. A man in dark glasses, face blank. She picked up her pace. At the diner, there was a new customer waiting when she arrived. A woman in a crisp navy suit, sitting at one of the corner tables with a cup of untouched coffee. She didn't order anything. She didn't talk to anyone. But her eyes followed Emma's every move. When Emma finally got a break, the woman stood and approached her. "You're Emma Reynolds, correct?" she asked. Emma froze. "Yeah. Who are you?" The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just someone who's interested in the well-being of certain individuals." Emma's skin prickled. She thought about the card in her pocket. Thought about Christopher's warning. The woman leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "You helped the boy. That was kind of you. But sometimes kindness can get complicated." Emma stared at her, unsure what to say. Before she could figure it out, the woman slipped a folded piece of paper into Emma's hand and walked away, heels clicking sharply on the tile floor. Emma unfolded it with trembling fingers. There was no message, just an address. An address she didn't recognize. And underneath it, A single line scribbled in neat handwriting. "Be careful who you trust." Emma looked up, but the woman was already gone. And for the first time in her life, Emma realized that helping a lonely child had pulled her into something much bigger, much darker, and far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. Emma sat frozen at the small staff table in the back of the diner, the piece of paper still clutched tightly in her hand. She kept staring at the address, hoping it might suddenly make sense, but it didn't. It wasn't anywhere she recognized. It wasn't even close to town. Her mind raced. Should she call the number Christopher gave her? Should she go to the police? But what would she even tell them? That a billionaire's son showed up at her diner, scared and alone, and now strange people were slipping her secret addresses. It all sounded insane, even to her. The lunch rush pulled her back into motion, and for a while, Emma tried to lose herself in the rhythm of work. Taking orders, refilling coffee, smiling at customers. But she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Every time she glanced out the window, she thought she saw the same black car parked a little way down the street. Every time the door chimed, her heart jumped into her throat. Later that afternoon, when the diner finally emptied out, her coworker Mia plopped into the seat across from her. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma forced a laugh. "Just tired. Long shift." Mia eyed her for a long second. "Well, if you're tired of this dump, I don't blame you. But listen," she lowered her voice. "You hear about that big-shot billionaire being in town? People are saying he's been spotted around here. Christopher Langston. Can you believe it?" Emma froze, her coffee halfway to her mouth. "They say something's going on with his family," Mia continued, oblivious to Emma's reaction. "Some drama. Security everywhere. Like big money problems or something worse. You know how it is. Rich people pretending they don't have problems, but sometimes it's even messier than ours." Emma gave a stiff nod, her mind spinning even faster now. She knew there was more to Liam's story. More than Christopher had let on. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The note, the address, the warning, they pressed on her mind, refusing to be ignored. Against every ounce of better judgment she had, Emma made a decision. She had to know what was going on. She wasn't someone who liked sticking her nose in other people's business, but this wasn't just curiosity anymore. This felt bigger. It felt like she was already part of it, whether she wanted to be or not. The next morning she packed a bag with some essentials, a phone charger, a flashlight, a bottle of water, and borrowed her brother's beat-up old car. She typed the address into her GPS. It was about 40 minutes out of town, down a winding back road that looked more forgotten than traveled. As she drove, trees crowded the edges of the narrow road, casting long shadows. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel. She couldn't stop replaying Christopher's warning in her head. "If you ever feel unsafe." Finally, the GPS beeped, signaling she had arrived. Emma pulled over, heart pounding. She stared through the windshield at a crumbling, abandoned-looking house tucked into the woods. The place looked deserted, but she spotted a flash of movement at the second-story window. Someone was inside. Emma sat there for a long minute, debating whether to go closer. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around. But something else, stubbornness maybe, pushed her forward. She climbed out of the car, the gravel crunching under her sneakers. The air smelled damp like moss and old wood. She crept up to the front porch, which sagged dangerously under her weight. Before she could knock, the door creaked open an inch on its own. Emma swallowed hard. "Hello," she called out, her voice shaking slightly. "Is someone there?" No answer. She pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The house was cold and dark, filled with dust and broken furniture. It looked abandoned, but there were signs someone had been there recently. A can of soup on the counter, a thin mattress in the living room, a flickering candle sitting on a table. Suddenly, a voice behind her made her jump. "You shouldn't have come here." Emma spun around to see a woman standing in the shadows, her arms crossed. It was the same woman from the diner, the one who had given her the note. "I didn't have a choice," Emma said quickly, her heart pounding. I just want to know what's going on. I want to help. The woman stepped closer into the light. Her expression was hard to read. Tired, worn. But there was something desperate in her eyes too. This isn't just about a little boy getting lost, she said. It's about power. About control. Emma frowned. Control over what? The woman hesitated, then pulled something out of her jacket. A photograph. She handed it to Emma. Emma looked down and gasped. It was a picture of Liam. But younger, maybe 3 or 4 years old. Standing beside Christopher Langston. And next to them a woman. Smiling, radiant, holding Liam's hand. But it wasn't the picture itself that shook Emma. It was what was written on the back in messy, hurried handwriting. If anything happens to me, protect him. Trust no one. Emma's hands trembled as she looked back up. Who is she? Emma asked, her voice barely a whisper. The woman's expression tightened. Her name was Isabella. Liam's mother. Was. Emma repeated, her stomach sinking. The woman nodded. She's dead. And not by accident. Emma felt like the floor dropped out from under her. You're saying someone killed her? The woman said nothing. She didn't need to. And you think Liam's in danger too? Emma asked. The woman nodded again. There are people who would do anything to control Christopher Langston and his fortune. Liam is the key. Whoever controls Liam controls everything. Emma staggered back a step, the weight of it hitting her like a punch. I don't understand, she said. Why me? Why give me this? The woman gave a sad smile. Because you cared when no one else did. And because you're not on anyone's payroll. You're just human. Before Emma could ask anything else, there was a sharp sound outside. Tires on gravel, doors slamming. The woman's face went pale. They found us, she hissed. She grabbed Emma's arm, pulling her toward a back door. We have to go. Now. Emma didn't argue. She just ran, her mind spinning, her heart pounding with fear and 1,000 unanswered questions. As they disappeared into the woods, Emma realized she was no longer just a waitress in a small town. She was running straight into a war she barely understood, a war where one wrong move could cost her everything. Branches slapped at Emma's arms as she stumbled through the thick woods behind the crumbling house. The woman pulled her along, both of them breathless, the sound of heavy boots pounding not far behind. Emma's heart felt like it would explode. Every instinct screamed to stop and hide, but the woman kept whispering, "Keep moving, don't look back." Through the trees, Emma caught flashes of black men in suits, the same ones from the diner. Maybe more of them. She couldn't tell how many, but it was enough to know they were serious. This wasn't just about keeping Liam safe anymore. Emma realized they weren't just trying to retrieve Liam. They were trying to erase anyone who knew too much. Her foot caught on a root, and she hit the ground hard, scraping her hands on the rough dirt. The woman turned, yanked her up without a word, and they pushed forward. The woods grew denser, the sunlight above fading into dim patches. Emma had no idea where they were going. All she knew was that getting caught wasn't an option. Finally, the trees thinned just enough to reveal an old service road. A battered pickup truck sat hidden behind some overgrown brush. The woman fumbled with a key and shoved Emma into the passenger seat. As the engine sputtered to life, Emma dared a glance back. She caught sight of one of the men breaking through the tree line. His face furious. He shouted something she couldn't hear over the roar of the engine. The truck tore down the road, bumping and rattling over every pothole. Emma gripped the door handle so tight her knuckles turned white. After several minutes, when the woods gave way to empty fields, the woman finally spoke. I didn't plan for it to happen like this. I thought we had more time. Emma tried to catch her breath. Who are they? What do they want? The woman's jaw tightened. They work for the board. It's not official. It's not even on paper. But it's real. They control assets. Companies. People. And now they want Liam. Emma shook her head, trying to make sense of it. Why? He's just a little boy. The woman glanced over at her. Because Liam inherits everything if something happens to Christopher. And Christopher, he's made a lot of enemies. Some of them don't want to wait. Emma stared out the window, the fields blurring past. And you? Why are you helping? The woman hesitated. Because I made a promise to Isabella. She was my friend. She didn't trust anyone except a handful of people. And before she died, she warned me. She said if anything ever happened to her, Liam would be the next target. Emma shivered. She thought about Liam's small hand gripping hers in the diner, the fear in his eyes. No child should have to be part of something like this. The woman pulled off the main road, driving behind a rundown gas station. She parked and turned off the engine, the sudden silence ringing in Emma's ears. I have to show you something, the woman said, pulling a worn leather folder from under the seat. She handed it to Emma. Inside were documents, real estate records, investment papers, legal contracts, all tied back to Christopher Langston. But tucked in the middle was something more chilling. A report stamped confidential, detailing a transition plan for Liam's guardianship. It wasn't a plan for his protection. It was a plan for control. A plan that didn't include Christopher or anyone who truly cared about Liam. Emma looked up at the woman, horror settling into her bones. They're planning to take him. The woman nodded grimly. They've been planning it for a long time. Waiting for the right moment. Emma's mind spun. She thought about Christopher's warning, about the card he gave her. About the way Liam clung to her like he had no one else. We have to do something, Emma said, her voice shaking. The woman's face was grim. There's a safe house. I can get you and Liam there. But you'll have to be ready. Once we move him, they'll come harder. They'll know we're not just running anymore. We're fighting back. Emma swallowed hard. She was just a waitress. She wasn't meant to be part of anything like this. But she knew, deep in her heart, that she couldn't walk away. Not now. The woman checked her watch. We don't have much time. They'll realize we're gone and start hunting. Before Emma could answer, a black SUV pulled into the gas station lot, tires screeching. Get down, the woman hissed, pulling Emma low behind the dashboard. Emma peeked over the edge of the window. 3 men jumped out of the SUV, scanning the area. One of them held a phone to his ear. Emma could hear snippets of the conversation. The waitress. Find her. Langston's orders. Her stomach flipped. Were they working for Christopher? Or against him? The doubt gnawed at her. She thought Christopher wanted to protect Liam. But if he had ties to the people chasing her, maybe she was wrong. The woman must have seen the panic on her face. Not everyone around Christopher is loyal, she whispered. Some are only loyal to the highest bidder. Emma ducked lower. The men moved toward the gas station, questioning the lone attendant. She needed to decide fast. Trust Christopher and call the number he gave her. Or trust this woman and disappear. Before she could think it through, the woman grabbed her wrist. We need to move. Now. They slipped out of the truck on the opposite side, darting through the back lot toward a line of old storage units. Emma's lungs burned as they ran, but adrenaline kept her feet moving. Behind them shouts rang out. They had been spotted. The woman yanked open the door to one of the units, revealing another car inside. Smaller, faster looking. Get in, she barked. Emma dove into the passenger seat just as the first man rounded the corner. Gunshots weren't fired, not yet, but the threat was clear. The engine roared to life, and they peeled out, gravel spraying in all directions. Emma clutched the seat, heart racing wildly. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't know who to trust. But she knew one thing for sure. Liam's life, and maybe hers too, hung in the balance. And the real fight was only just beginning. The tires screeched as the car sped onto the empty highway, the woman gripping the wheel with white-knuckled focus. Emma sat beside her, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Her mind spun in circles, trying to piece everything together, But no matter how she looked at it, the situation felt impossible. They were up against powerful people, and the little boy at the center of it all was counting on her. The woman's phone buzzed on the dashboard, making both of them jump. She snatched it up and answered with a clipped, "Go." Emma strained to hear the voice on the other end but could only catch fragments. Something about movement at the diner, someone looking for the girl and the kid. Her blood ran cold. Liam was still back in town, probably scared and waiting, trusting that Emma would come back for him. The woman hung up and swore under her breath. "They're closing in. They know where you work, where you live. We have less time than I thought." Emma squeezed her hands together in her lap, panic creeping higher. "We have to get to him. Liam's all alone." The woman nodded grimly. "That's the plan. But we have another problem." Emma's stomach twisted. "What now?" The woman shot her a quick look. "Someone inside Christopher's inner circle is feeding them information. Someone very close. We thought it might be a security officer. Maybe even his lawyer. But now, we're not sure." Emma stared at her, not understanding. "What do you mean?" The woman exhaled slowly, like it physically hurt to say it. "It might be Christopher himself." The car swerved slightly as Emma's brain reeled. "No, that can't be. He wanted to protect Liam. He gave me his number, told me to call if anything happened." The woman gave a hard, sad smile. "Or maybe he gave you that number so they could find you faster." Emma shook her head in disbelief. Everything she thought she knew was crumbling. If Christopher wasn't truly on Liam's side, then they were even more alone than she realized. The idea made her chest ache. Liam deserved better than this. Better than all of them. They sped into the town's outskirts, ducking down side streets to avoid being seen. The plan was simple. Get to the diner, grab Liam, and disappear before anyone could catch them. But Emma knew nothing would be simple anymore. Too many eyes were watching. They pulled into the alley behind the diner. It looked quiet, almost too quiet. Emma's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. "You go in alone," the woman said, cutting the engine. "Less chance of raising alarm. I'll circle the block." Emma nodded, her throat dry. She slipped out of the car, every step toward the back door feeling heavier than the last. She slipped inside through the employee entrance, the familiar smell of coffee and pancakes hitting her like a wave of normalcy. For a second, she almost believed she could go back to the life she had before Liam walked in. But reality snapped back when she saw the scene inside. Liam was there, sitting in a booth, but he wasn't alone. A man sat across from him, casually dressed but with an air of sharpness Emma didn't trust. His hand rested on the table close to Liam, too close. His eyes flicked up and locked onto Emma as she entered, and a slow smile spread across his face. "There you are," he said smoothly. "Emma, right?" Emma froze, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. "Very wrong." "I'm a friend of Mr. Langston's," the man continued, gesturing for her to sit. "He asked me to collect the boy. Said you'd understand." Liam's eyes, wide and scared, flicked to Emma. He shook his head slightly, so small the man didn't notice. Emma forced a smile, her mind racing. "Funny, because Mr. Langston told me to call him directly." The man chuckled like they were sharing a private joke. "Oh, he's very busy. Sent me instead." Emma nodded slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. She needed to think. "Rest. I just need to grab my things from the back," she said lightly. "1 second." She backed away, forcing herself not to run. The moment she rounded the corner into the kitchen, she pulled out her phone. She didn't call Christopher. She didn't trust him anymore. She called the woman, praying she was close. "They're here," Emma whispered when the woman answered. "A man's inside with Liam. Says he's a friend of Christopher's." "Get the boy and get out," the woman said urgently. "Now. I'm almost there." Emma pocketed the phone and took a deep breath. She grabbed a heavy metal tray from the counter, steeling herself. She wasn't a fighter. She was just a waitress. But today that had to be enough. She burst back into the dining room. The man was standing now, leaning over Liam, his hand gripping the boy's shoulder. "Let him go," Emma said, louder than she meant to. The man turned, amusement flashing in his eyes, until Emma hurled the tray at him with everything she had. It caught him off guard, smacking into his side. He staggered back just enough for Emma to lunge forward, grabbing Liam's hand. "Run!" she shouted. Liam didn't hesitate. They bolted through the front door, into the blinding afternoon light. Emma didn't dare look back. She heard shouting, the door slamming open behind them, footsteps pounding after them. Then, out of nowhere, the battered pickup screeched to a halt in front of them. The woman threw open the passenger door. "Get in!" Emma shoved Liam inside first, diving in after him. The door slammed shut just as the man from the diner lunged at them. Tires squealed, and they sped away again, hearts pounding, breaths ragged. They didn't speak for a long time, the tension inside the truck so thick it was almost suffocating. Finally, Liam's small voice broke the silence. "Is Mr. Langston bad?" Emma didn't know how to answer. She glanced at the woman, who kept her eyes on the road. "I don't know yet," Emma said honestly. "But I know we're not giving up on you." Liam squeezed her hand, his little fingers clutching hers tight. The woman turned onto a dusty side road leading away from town, heading deeper into the countryside. But just when Emma started to think they might have a head start, she spotted something up ahead. Blockade. Black SUVs stretched across the road, men in dark clothes setting up barriers. It wasn't just a few of them now. It was an army, and there was no turning back. The woman slammed the brakes, the truck fishtailing slightly on the dirt road. Emma grabbed Liam, pulling him close as the vehicle skidded to a stop. Dust clouded around them, the wall of black SUVs up ahead looking like an immovable force. Men stepped forward, radios crackling, hands near their belts. Emma's heart pounded against her ribs so loud it was all she could hear. They were trapped, and she knew it. The woman's face was hard, calculating. She threw the truck into reverse, the tires spinning, but before they could even get 2 feet back, more vehicles pulled in behind them. They were surrounded. Emma's fingers tightened around Liam's small frame. There was nowhere left to run. From the lead SUV, a man stepped out. Emma's stomach dropped when she saw him. It was Christopher Langston. His sharp suit was dusty from the road, but his calm, cold expression was impossible to mistake. He walked toward them like he had all the time in the world, his polished shoes crunching over the gravel. The woman cursed under her breath, reaching down for something under her seat. Emma stopped her with a look. Violence would only end badly now. They had to be smarter. Emma pushed the truck door open slowly, her legs shaky as she stepped out with Liam behind her. Christopher raised his hand slightly, a gesture that was meant to look non-threatening but felt anything but. "Emma," he said smoothly, "you've done very well. Better than I expected, honestly." Emma stared at him, barely able to believe the betrayal unfolding in front of her. "You lied," she said, her voice raw. "You used me." Christopher gave a sad smile. "I protected him the best way I knew how. But there are things, bigger things at play. Things you wouldn't understand." Emma felt Liam grip her tighter. She crouched a little, shielding him instinctively. "I understand enough. I know you're not here for his good. You're here for your own." The woman had gotten out too, standing tense at Emma's side. The air between them and Christopher was thick with danger, like a stretched wire ready to snap. Christopher's eyes softened slightly when they landed on Liam. For just a flicker of a second, Emma thought maybe he really did care. But then he sighed and nodded at the men flanking him. "Take them." The men moved forward. Emma's body reacted before her mind did. She shoved Liam behind her and shouted, "Run, Liam! Run!" The woman pulled a flare gun from under her jacket and fired it straight into the sky. A blinding red streak shot upward, lighting up the fading afternoon sky. Chaos erupted. From the tree lean behind them, black-clad figures appeared, not Christopher's men, but others. agents Emma didn't recognize. In seconds they stormed the clearing, shouting commands, weapons drawn but lowered, clearly trying to avoid hurting the boy. Christopher's men froze, caught off guard. One of the new agents, a tall woman with sharp eyes, barked into a megaphone. "Federal custody. Everyone stand down." Christopher's jaw tightened. For the first time he looked unsure. The tall woman marched straight up to Emma, flashing a badge so fast Emma barely caught it. "You're safe now," she said lowly. "We've been watching. Waiting for him to make his move." Emma's mind struggled to catch up. "Who are you?" The agent gave her a small smile. "Let's just say, friends of Liam's real family." Emma held Liam close, watching as the new agents handcuffed Christopher and his men, reading them their rights. The once powerful man didn't resist. He just stared at Emma with a look that was almost proud. "You did good, Emma," he called over the noise. "Better than most would have." Then he smiled, not a cruel smile, but a strangely peaceful one, before ducking into the back of a waiting SUV. Emma sat down hard on the dusty ground, Liam still tucked into her side. She didn't understand all of it yet, probably never would. But for now they were safe. And that was enough. The woman who had been with her all along knelt beside her. "You're not out of the woods yet," she said softly. "There's more you don't know." Emma looked at her, exhausted. "What now?" The woman hesitated, then said something that made Emma's heart lurch all over again. "Christopher wasn't trying to steal Liam's fortune," she said. "He was trying to keep it from falling into even worse hands. Hands inside Liam's real family." Emma's mind reeled. "You mean his family?" The woman nodded grimly. "The board wasn't just a group of strangers. Some of them. They're his blood. They're the ones who really want control. Christopher made mistakes, big ones, but he wasn't lying when he said he cared." Emma hugged Liam tighter, her mind struggling to take it all in. They had saved him from one threat, but maybe an even bigger one was still waiting. As the federal agents bundled up the last of Christopher's men, the tall woman returned, crouching beside Emma. "You have a choice," she said gently. "We can place Liam somewhere safe. Witness protection. New names, new lives. Or you can stay with him. Raise him yourself. But it won't be easy. They'll never stop looking." Emma looked down at Liam's trusting face. He was watching her, waiting, his future hanging in the balance. She knew deep down there was only one answer. "I'm staying with him," she whispered. "He's not alone anymore." The agent nodded, almost like she had been expecting it. As the sun dipped low over the dusty fields, Emma held Liam close, her heart steady for the first time in days. But somewhere, far beyond the horizon, the real battle was only beginning. And Emma knew she'd have to be stronger than she ever imagined. For both of them. The sun had set by the time the federal agents finished securing the area, their vehicles scattered around the dirt road, flashing lights still casting eerie shadows. Emma sat on the tailgate of the truck, holding Liam in her lap, watching the chaos unfold before them. She had made her choice, and in that moment it felt right, despite everything that had happened, despite all the questions still left unanswered. The tall agent, the one who had led the charge, came over to them. She knelt down, her eyes soft but firm. "You're safe now, Emma. We'll make sure nothing happens to Liam." Emma nodded, still processing the whirlwind of events. "What happens now? What's next for us?" The agent exhaled slowly. "For now you both stay with us. We need to debrief, get Liam's statement. There's a lot we need to sort out, but we're here to protect you. The people behind this aren't going to let go easily. But you've got something on your side that they can't fight." Emma frowned, glancing at Liam, who was holding on to her with a grip that didn't feel like a child's. His small, trusting hands were firm, as if he had known all along that he needed her just as much as she needed him. It was a bond that had grown stronger with each passing day, each challenge they had faced. "And what's that?" Emma asked, her voice low. The agent gave a small, knowing smile. "You have each other." Liam's head rested against her shoulder, his soft breath steadying in the quiet night. Emma held him close, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. She had never imagined that her life would turn into a story like this. A story of wealth, power, betrayal, but also love, strength, and a determination to protect what mattered most. It wasn't just about the money, or the people behind the money. It was about something deeper. She thought about the woman who had helped them, the one who had stayed by her side when everything seemed lost. She didn't know the full truth of the woman's involvement, or how much more she knew about Liam's real family, but Emma had learned to trust her instincts. That woman had been a protector, and now so was she. The agent stood, stretching her back. "We'll take you to a safe house for now. But after that, there are things you'll need to know. Liam's real family. Well, let's just say the story isn't over. They'll try to claim him again, but we're going to be ready." The words hit Emma like a cold wave. There was no escaping the past, no sweeping it under the rug. Liam had a family, a legacy, something that others would fight for, and perhaps even fight him for. She knew it was coming, that this was just one chapter in a much bigger story. The agent turned to her as if reading her thoughts. "But that doesn't have to be your fight. We'll handle the legal battles. We'll keep you both out of harm's way." Emma hesitated for a moment. She glanced down at Liam, his innocent face looking up at her with an unspoken trust, as if to say that wherever she went, he would follow. It was the one certainty in a world full of uncertainty. "I'm not leaving him," Emma said softly, her voice strong. "He's my responsibility now." The agent nodded. "Understood. But just so you know, we'll make sure you're not alone in this. We've got connections. The right people. We'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." It was strange to hear those words, to know that there were people out there who had been watching, protecting them from the shadows. Emma had spent most of her life trying to survive on her own, unsure of who she could trust. But now she had a team, a force behind her, and most importantly, Liam. They had already fought their way through the darkness, and somehow they were still standing. They drove through the night, leaving the chaos of the past few hours behind them. The safe house they arrived at was nothing more than a small, unassuming house on the outskirts of town. It felt like the calm after the storm, the quiet that came before the next wave. But for the first time in days, Emma allowed herself to relax just a little. For the first time, she let herself breathe. Liam went straight to the couch, curling up with a stuffed animal the agent had given him. He was tired, no doubt, but his eyes never left Emma. Even in the safety of the house, he seemed to be waiting for her to make the next move. The agent sat down across from them, her posture stiff but patient. "You'll have time to rest. But we need to talk about your options, about what comes next for Liam. His inheritance, his future. It's complicated, Emma. I can't sugarcoat it." Emma nodded, trying to keep her emotions in check. "I understand. But we'll face it together, right? Liam and me." The agent's face softened. "You're not alone in this, Emma. Remember that." That night, as Emma watched over Liam, the weight of everything started to settle in. There were still so many unanswered questions. What had really happened to Liam's real family? Who else was out there trying to claim him? And what did Christopher Langston really want? Beyond the money, beyond the power. But those questions, for now, were not as important as the boy asleep on the couch beside her. They would figure it all out eventually, one step at a time. Emma had learned the hard way that life didn't always go as planned, that people weren't always what they seemed. But she had also learned that love, trust, and determination were forces that could change the course of any story. And as she gazed out the window, watching the first light of dawn break across the sky, she knew she would fight with everything she had. For Liam. For their future. They were safe for now. But Emma understood that safety was fleeting. The world could change in an instant. All she had was today. And that was enough. Because in the end, it wasn't the riches or the secrets that mattered. It was the people you chose to protect, the ones who became family by your side. And that was a story Emma would write, no matter the cost.